rough night, the bartender filled my glass and pushed it across the bar towards me. I grabbed it with a trembling right hand that I couldn't steady no matter how hard I tried. The whole point of having the drink in the first place was to calm my nerves down. Something like that, I mumbled, keeping my head facing downward towards the bar. The bartender simply shrugged. With the amount of people I assume spilled their guts, both figuratively and literally, to the man, he was probably happy that he didn't have to listen to another sob story from a random patron, especially at this point in the night. It was just a little before midnight on a Wednesday. The bar only had about 3 hours before it closed. It wasn't like I could confide my soul to this man anyways. I took a gulp of whiskey in the glass. I was there to try and drink away the actions I had committed. I knew that losing myself in alcohol couldn't undo what I had done, but I needed to do something to fix it, even if it would only help for a few hours at best. In my paranoid state, I half expected to see my horrendous act being projected on one of the TV screens above where the bartender stood. I shook my head and took another sip to calm down. The news wouldn't air the story for another 5 hours at least. I casually reached my hand down into my pocket to make sure that it still contained my belongings. Deep in my jacket pocket, I felt the metal handle of the revolver. I let out a sigh of relief, realizing that I hadn't somehow managed to lose it. That would surely lead to my arrest. I had been so careful about everything. I had scouted the gas station for a week. I found out that after 8 p.m., there was only one person there till 5 a.m. He was a young man in his early 20s. He was just a kid. This one employee that was alone for 9 hours would typically begin relaxing around 10 p.m. By the time it was 11 p.m., he was always on his phone. I didn't even drive there. I only lived in an apartment a few blocks away, so I figured that if I walked, there would be no chance that anyone would be able to identify my car or license plate. I put on a mask and a heavy coat to make myself look bulkier than I really was. The only thing I forgot to do was wear gloves, but I reasoned that I would only touch the door, the cash from the register, and the door handle to get in. I would wipe down the door handle with my sleeves, and I wouldn't have to worry about the other 2 items as they were leaving with me. It was supposed to be a flawless robbery, in and out with a decent wad of cash. It was going just as planned until I went to leave. Once my back was turned to the boy, he made a move for something under the counter that I couldn't see. I hadn't planned on using the gun, not even for a second, but I couldn't risk him doing anything that would put me in jeopardy. In my manic state, I shot the boy twice, once in the temple of his skull and once in the throat. I heard him let out a sick, gurgling noise as he fell to the ground behind the counter. In a heavy thud, I didn't stick around to see the aftermath of what I'd done besides the crimson splatter on the wall behind him. I stripped away my mask and shoved it, the money, and the gun into my jacket pocket. I needed to find somewhere to go. I lowered my hand away from my pocket again and once again cradled my glass. The bar was close to the gas station, but not close enough to warrant the police checking it for suspects. I kept my head down as I heard the door of the establishment open and an individual walk in. "Hey man," the bartender addressed the patron. "Can I see some ID?" I heard the patron let out an "uh-huh" and fumbled through his wallet as he took a seat a few stools away from me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him flash his ID to the bartender, who nodded before asking the fellow what he wanted to drink. The man simply ordered a glass of water. The bartender laughed before saying, "Don't go too crazy now," began pouring him his drink. I looked up to see the type of person that would order a glass of water at a bar at midnight. When I saw him, I nearly dropped my own glass. It was him. It was the employee from the gas station. I put my glass down and rubbed my eyes to see if they were deceiving me. Once I realized they weren't, I quickly looked away from him and back at my glass of whiskey on the bar. Any work that the alcohol had made in calming my nerves had already been undone. I knew it was him. He was even wearing the same gas station uniform as was a mere few hours before, yet he had no signs of a wound. There wasn't even a bruise on his head or neck. Somehow he was completely fine. He didn't pay me any attention, which was fine by me, because there was no way in hell I would be able to form any words at this point. After what felt like an eternity, he got up from his stool. I prayed that he would just get up and leave so I could pretend that the whole encounter was merely a figment of my imagination. Instead of leaving, however, I heard him make his way to the bathroom. I saw an opportunity. I waited just a few seconds before I also got up and went into the bathroom. When I opened the door, I saw him at the urinal, furthest away from the door. It was just the two of us. I instinctively reached into my coat pocket for my gun, fully planning on shooting him in the head once again. Thankfully, before I did, I realized that it would definitely alert the bartender. The last thing that I wanted was to end up in jail, but I couldn't leave this guy walking around, not after what I'd already done to him. The gun would assist me in another way though. I held it by the handle and snuck up behind him. The second that he flushed the urinal, I brought the metal gun down on his head, knocking him down to the ground. Before he could make a noise, I wrapped my arms around him in a headlock. He struggled, kicked and clawed, but I kept squeezing and squeezing until all of his motion subsided completely. As he lay on the bathroom floor, I cautiously reached down and checked for a pulse. This time I was certain that he was indeed dead. I dragged his body into one of the stalls and propped him up on the toilet to make it look as though he was using the bathroom to anyone that came. I closed the stall door from the inside and had the displeasure of crawling under the opening at the bottom to get out. I washed my hands and left the bathroom. If I left right away, I knew that it would look too suspicious. Instead, I sat down and planned to quickly finish my drink. I reasoned that I could sit for another 5 minutes or so, and then leave. After about 2 though, the bathroom door opened and I heard footsteps walking towards the bar. It was him again, seemingly unfazed as he was once again, showed no signs of his past injury. I couldn't take it anymore. I screamed as I reached into my pocket and fired 2 shots into him once again. Both hit him in the torso, and he went down instantly. Behind me, the bartender let out a scream of his own. As he scrambled to get away, I turned my gun onto him and pulled the trigger. It only took one to take him down. I ran out of the bar without taking another look at the 2 of them. I sprinted all the way back to my apartment and locked the door behind me. About 15 minutes after I arrived, I heard a knock on my door. I didn't answer, still too shaken by the events that had just taken place to do anything other than sit on my couch and tremble as I stared at the grimy ceiling. Then I heard another knock. Then another. I was getting more and more on edge with each knock. But the breaking point was when I heard a voice behind the door. I recognized it immediately as that of the bartender. Then I heard the other voice, which was the very same that had ordered water at the bar and pleaded for his life at the gas station. Both of those damned bastards were back. I let out a wail as I realized that this wouldn't end. The whole time I wrote this, they won't quit knocking and talking, pleading with me to just open the door. I've thought of shooting them again, but there would be no use. Besides, the gun only has one bullet left. I think I know who it's for.